that's just started now for you guys.
Excellent. So, Richard from the Film and TV Show, and I am here with Alexis Cruz.
Yeah. Nice
Alexis is very well known to a lot of people as Skara from Stargate.
Yeah.
Which we both, myself and Alex, have both grown up with, and we were just saying. This is a massive honour for me, I have to say,
pleasure's mine.
because it's, as I say, we grew up with not only the film but also SG1 as well.
Right. Yeah.
What was
So we grew up together.
Well, yeah, because you were quite young when you did Stargate.
Yeah.
How old were you when
Yeah,
you did the film?
I was 19, I just turned 19 when I did the
Really?
film. Yeah.
Wow, that's definitely don't look 19 in it.
No, I know.
Absolutely don't.
Yeah.
How did you find it? Was it your first major motion picture?
No, I'd done several others. I started acting when I was 9 years old.
Really?
Yeah,
What did
so
you
I was a
do
child actor
before?
first. Tons of stuff that you guys probably won't even recognize anymore. So hey, we can go through my.
We'll go for your IMDb.
The
later.
Stargate was the big one.
Yeah.
That sort of broke open all the doors after that.
Okay. So
Yeah.
how did you find being on? Because it was a really big sort of budget. It looked like a big budget, a really big sort of marketing campaign.
Well, it was for the time. At the time, it was like up there in the top 5, top 10 big budget.
Yeah.
Epics of the time.
How was it?
Now it's considered an indie cheapo.
Yeah. See, I don't get that. I
Right.
mean, how do you feel about them potentially making a remake and rebooting it again within the new sort of within the SG1 universe? How do you feel about that?
Well, I don't know. It depends. I think the film as it stands now still holds up, which is a credit to the quality invested in the first place.
Definitely.
And that's surprising to me, because even now I'll watch other things from back then that don't hold up, right? But this one I just saw it a few weeks ago. It came on cable, and I was cleaning the house, whatever, and it was the effects are still good, the cast, the story, it's all still there. So in terms of reboot, I don't know. That rumor's been out for a while.
Yeah, it's not.
It's been a few years now.
Yeah,
That rumor's been out, and there was some backlash from the fan community about it. I think unless they advance the story this long, they would probably recast my role. They would recast everything. I'd rather do it myself, but again, unless they're going to advance it,
Unless they advance you, because
right.
obviously, as with anything, time passes by, you can't just kind of go back. Although, in some films they use a lot of CGI.
Yeah. Well, and I think like anything else, there should be a really good reason for a reboot or a remake, right?
Yeah,
there should be a
exactly.
really good reason. If the original thing holds up, like what are we
There's
going to
no need.
We're going to watch what we already watched.
Yeah.
And at this point, I think the community, the fandom is hungry for more, not the same, just more.
Something different.
Let's continue stuff. Whether it be this story having anything to do with Abydos or not, it's just give them more Stargate.
Yeah, absolutely.
For my part, I would love to continue in some other capacity in Stargate as well. Now older, very different person now, and I love the franchise. I love the whole universe. Right? It's just that it's so open to anything that you want to do with it. So I'd rather they go on that. But of course, like I had my time, and it was wonderful, right? And all of that still. Look, you guys here, you're excited, so that makes me excited. So that's always there, and that will always be there, right? And when I'm 50 and 80 years old, like we'll still have that.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy and very satisfied with my place is assured. Okay, that's fine. And then other than that, like let somebody else take it, let somebody else run with it. I'd love to see what some new kid does with the role, because there's a lot there. It's by now over these years what we've done with it. Scar's a very, very complex character. Much more complex than I think than people realize. Probably don't, because we didn't really have enough time on the series to get too deep into it. And part of that was production schedules. I was on another show, on Touched by an Angel, at the same time. So we couldn't quite, do what they've done with some of the other roles. But everybody wanted to. So we'll see. I may explore that in a different venue as a writer. That's another
because you write as well, don't you? You have
yeah.
a graphic novel out as well, which is awesome. I didn't realise.
The Unprofessional, the Sociopathic Romance, we put that out a few years ago now.
What's that about?
It's about two best friends growing up in New York who decide that they want to get into the hitman for hire business.
Okay.
But they have no idea what they're doing. So it all goes off the rails. And soon they have real hitmen after them and the cops after them. And it's just chaos.
Okay. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it is actually.
That sounds
It's a
awesome.
pretty fun project.
If you could have that as a TV show, would you ever kind of take it down?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that was initially part of the package concept was to develop it in stages.
Okay.
And my eye was eventually to go to live action. And we still may go back to that. I mean, I've got a few other things in the fire that I'm focusing on, but eventually it'll come around because it would make a fantastic TV show.
Yeah, especially with the sort of TV shows there is at the moment, it would kind of just sit nicely within.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially,
yeah.
I don't know, a Netflix sort of exclusive.
That's actually what I was hoping, but you know, that's what everybody hopes for,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
So you know, I'll take whoever wants to buy it.
There you go. So there you go. The right
So
right there to buy.
the key is like just get it done, right?
Well, yeah. So going back to the TV show, obviously within that you have O'Neill, but it's not Kurt Russell, it's Richard Dean Anderson.
Right.
But the relationship that Skara has, you can still see from the film to the TV, it still transcends into the TV.
Yeah.
How was it to kind of build that relationship with both?
Super easy.
guys? Really?
Super
Yeah.
easy. I mean, first of all, both of them are terrific actors in their own right. So them meeting me in the middle was easy for them. And then for me, I grew up with both of them,
Yeah.
right? We grew up watching Kurt Russell, and I grew up on MacGyver, right? He was
yeah.
a hero, right? So it was, I mean, at that point, that part of it wasn't really acting.
Yeah.
It was, yeah, hi, how you doing? But, you know, there was a sense of maybe even it being more real because you're really watching that meeting for the first time again, right? And for me, it was, oh wow, it's MacGyver. It's, all right, how you doing? Oh, I'm calling you O'Neill. Okay, great. Sure. You know?
So what are your thoughts on the dynamic between O'Neill and Skara? How would you picture it? What would it be, like a father-son type thing? Would you kind of see it that way? Because Skara's very fond of O'Neill.
Yeah.
Probably more so than Daniel Jackson.
No,
You don't think so?
not anymore.
No.
Not anymore. Because keep in mind that it was Jackson who stayed with Skara
This
over
is
the
true.
next few years.
Yeah.
Right? In those next few years, which was like, we've destroyed our God. It's really difficult to even conceive of that.
Well, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, to translate into our senses, right? To meet, confront, and ultimately destroy your God. Like, that's heavy. That's
Yeah.
huge, massive. And so, and he's a child, essentially. You watch him go through this trauma of war,
Yeah.
right, firsthand, and then he says this teacher stays with him, and all of them, and starts teaching. He's teaching them all about
Yeah.
who our ancestors were, because the ancient Egyptians are still our ancestors on
Yeah.
this whole other planet, right? And that's, I mean, there's a whole. I'm sure he spent 5 or 10 years and never ran out of material
No.
to educate us on, right? To bring us up to speed. So there's a whole story there that hasn't been told,
See,
right?
that
What
would be
happens to the
great.
politics of that planet, the government structures, right? The religious hierarchy that Kasuf runs. There's all these things for the development of this new nation. What is the relationship between that nation and SG Command, the United States, the rest of the world,
Yeah.
right? Who else knows about this? Do we get a say in what those diplomatic things are, right? And how would Skara grow into that role? And it wouldn't be O'Neill who would be mentoring that. If anything, Daniel Jackson is the perfect person to be mentoring that, you know, new heir to the Aberdonian.
Yeah.
You know, he's the leader and all that stuff. What are the other tribes on the planet? Are there other tribes at all on the
Yeah, there
planet?
has
What
to
were
be.
the other politics before that, you know, where it was originally governed by Ra, now, or yeah, Ra, okay.
Yeah, no, it wasn't
There's
Ra,
so
yeah.
many calls!
Well, you actually became one.
Right.
You actually became one, didn't you?
So, but once that's gone, right, how do we make contact with our other tribes and what becomes the economics? Like, there's all kinds of things going on there. So Daniel would have been at the heart of that. So I think while there was certainly a hero worship initially with O'Neill, and we get back to that from time to time. It's ultimately Jackson, who's his brother-in-law now.
Yeah.
Right? Who would have the most influence. And so ultimately, I sort of envision Skara ultimately becoming something of a combination of them both, right? This warrior scholar, this philosopher king.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that makes sense. That's what it would be. That's anybody in that position will ultimately, how successful that would be in what other context, right? But then you have this whole saga of him being a ghoul and being kidnapped and tortured, and not to get too dark, but it was very dark, right? Even though the show is a family adventure, the actual substance of what was happening and that we didn't see on screen, but we presume happens off screen, is unspeakably horrifying.
The first couple of seasons of Stargate are some of the darkest. Actually lightens towards the end of it.
Right.
However, the first couple dealing with Skara, dealing with Apophis mainly.
Right.
That's all very sort of dark and taking Skara against his will.
Exactly.
And things like that. It's quite shocking to tune in for the first couple of episodes.
Yeah.
And like instantly, it's I think the first ever episode opens with US soldiers sitting around in an empty hangar, and then the Stargate opens and they kidnap a woman. Mm-hmm. And that was a great sort of shocking opening for it.
Yeah, so it's it can be very uncomfortable to even really think about what those details would be. And then, so what kind of an effect does that have on this young man, right? Who's already just having his mind blown by all of this stuff happening around him and to him and onto him, right? How does that change a person? And it absolutely would change a person. So my vision of Skara today is very different from what you guys probably imagine, right? This is a person that has gone through a lot of trauma, that's had to work through it, but had to work through it by surviving it and fighting, because he ultimately freed himself, right?
Yes.
Technically, at the end, the Talons really, they did the actual separation.
Yeah, they removed Chlorel, didn't they?
But Skara was somehow, story there, right? Powerful enough to fight this guy off, to do what nobody or only a handful of people in the history of the universe have ever done.
Well, the psychological impact of
who is this guy? Who's this kid that was able to do that? And so that's when I go back to what he took in and who he became under Daniel's tutelage, right? That had to happen, because Daniel himself is very cerebral and everything, right? So I think that part of that willpower and whatever strategy he had to get back to himself again came from Daniel, and so that's pretty heavy. And so I think about it, by now he's such a different person, and that would definitely affect the relationship with O'Neill, particularly, and like most relationships that grow and sometimes grow apart when one person is absent as well. For O'Neill, it might be the same, right? As far as O'Neill's concerned, because from the outside looking in, he's like, Scar, it's so great to see you, and he still has that paternal thing. But his kid has gone to war and back by himself.
Yeah, because he was left with Daniel and the aftermath, especially from the film, of his friend being killed.
Right. So there's certainly there's that love is still there for his mentor and his friend, but there's an equalization that has happened now, right? And probably also that the uneasy relationship that Skara had with Kasuf in the film initially, right? Has mended by now. They've all gone through things. And so just like ourselves in our real families, right? We go through things, we fall out with some of our family members, but we come back because over time we've come to see what is important in life. Of course, the more curves that life throws at us and the traumas and that we heal from, it changes those relationships and some makes them stronger. And we go, oh, well, I can now see things and appreciate things that I didn't see before. And the same with Kasuf. So, they're both interesting but my interest is actually more divergent towards that relationship with Kasuf, and then who did Kasuf become?
Well, exactly.
Because this was a man that was entrenched as the officiant
For
administrator for Ra,
Yeah.
and suddenly it's all pulled out from under him, and he sees that his life has been false and everything he's been teaching. But you do see at the end of that film, like he comes around, he's fully invested in freeing his people and all that. But he still has to process that. He still has to deal with that. And who am I? And I'm still the leader of my people. I'm still their shaman, right? In effect, how do I? What do I do with that now? Where do I lead them to? And how do I mend this relationship with my son? Right? There's a lot there. There is a lot there.
Yeah, it's when you really start to think about it, there is so many unanswered questions that kind of just get forgotten. But as the actor who played that person, you're kind of thinking, right, where can I take?
Oh yeah, I put a lot of thought into this.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I don't know about you, Richard, but I'm sensing a prequel series, maybe.
Well, I mean, why not?
I would love it.
Netflix could quite easily
It would
do
be.
something along
Well,
those
I would
lines.
love to do like not so much a prequel, because I think prequel is really largely irrelevant at this point.
Yeah.
But
you kind of
a
go after.
a side sequel,
Yeah.
like what they did with Battlestar Razor,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
right? How it was sort
Yeah.
of concurrent and happening somewhere else,
Yeah.
right? But it fit like right in that hiatus period,
Yeah.
right? And it was pretty developed and awesome. So I could sort of imagine something like that.
I'd love to
Did it,
see.
you know?
I'd love to see how Skyra deals with all the atrocities he's seen as a child and growing up within the 10 years,
Right.
but then also after having Chlorel removed, because having seen all of that, because as we find out that Skyra is still within and can still see and can still feel and but can't
Mhm.
speak and articulate, and Chlorel is effectively in charge. But then when Skyra is given full control until Chlorel can be removed,
Mhm.
it's kind of okay. Where does he go now? Because he's seen all of this, he's been unable to deal with it. And, we see how it affects Teal'c and how what he goes through.
Mhm.
It'd be nice to see it, Skyra going back to Abydos and back to settling down and
Right.
coming to terms with all of that and
Right,
and taking over. That would be immense.
Yeah. Well, here's some rewatch material. If you rewatch those early episodes too, I think you'll be able to see, because what I was trying to do is layer in some of that conflict while it was happening in real time. So you'll see, on one hand, Chlorel pretending to be Skyra in order to get a reaction out of the SG team. But there were other moments where it was reversed, and there was Skyra pretending to be Chlorel to get what he wanted. So there was a tug of war, and every time that Chlorel made an error, it was Skyra tugging on that, making him say the wrong thing, just distracting him for a minute, giving various guards the wrong information at different, just sabotaging from the inside out.
I'm gonna have to rewatch it all now.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's there. It's subtle, but it's there. I made sure of it.
How did you find just being within that production? Because it was, you kind of in it for a while, then not, then back again, then not, then kind of back again.
Right.
How was it for you, kind of jumping back in and out from?
It was fairly easy because everyone on the set was really terrific with me, right? And we had all bonded, and so it was easy. I came back and I picked up where I left off. On the flip side of that, in picking up where you left off, you do miss out on advancing all those relationships. So everybody that was there regularly together, their whole lives kept moving on together. They were a family that just got to know each other better and better as they changed. Whereas then I would come back in, and they knew me as the same guy. And we had our moments over the years, of course, but so it was different. It was different in that regard, but it was always fun and it was great and interesting.
How did you find working with two different Daniel Jacksons? So obviously James and then Michael.
Right.
You spent a lot more time with Michael than with
Yeah,
James.
by
But
far. Yeah.
obviously, I love James Vader. he's one of my favourite.
He was great. I'm personally, I think it was one of his best works of his entire career. I mean, as much as James has done his prolific career, this was so outside of what he had ever done, and much of what he's done since, right? And it was so brilliant and so just pitch perfect the whole time, and it was really unexpected, right? For anybody who, even at that point, he was still early in his career, but who had, from what you would have expected from James Spader, right? So I thought it was brilliant. And then you had Michael, who came in, who just nailed James doing Daniel, right? That it was scary.
They look so similar as well, don't they?
The mannerisms, like it was just all the behaviors, everything. It was perfect. But then what was wonderful was not just getting to know Michael over that time, but seeing Michael evolve that character and seeing how the character and him fuse together over time. Because you do have to do that on a television series, right? There's only so long that you can do character work on a long-running series, right? There's a lot, and you know, whatever you're doing, the tics or a limp or whatever, like you have to do that for 10, 11 years, right? Yeah. So you find a way as an actor to eventually merge them in a way that is still relatable, that the audience doesn't catch on, but is still right with you there, and it all makes sense within the narrative. And he just nailed it. He did that perfectly, and I loved it, and he was great at it.
Excellent. I could literally sit here and just talk to you all day. Honestly, it's just brilliant.
I mean, one thing I've got to that I just want to point out as well. I believe that it was Stargate that coined this phrase, "tastes like chicken."
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that came from Stargate, and that is such a big phrase nowadays. Like, if you can't describe what you're eating, it tastes like chicken. Yeah. But it's like Stargate has had such a massive influence on a whole load of people.
Yeah.
And how must that feel to be just a part of that, and to see, like on days like these where you come to the Comic-Cons where fans just light up when they see you, and that must be pretty special for you in some way.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine it's especially overall that time, and then after all this time, it's the 25th anniversary of the film now. Of SG-1 this year. So, you know, I think every actor would love to have at least one moment on something that big, on a phenomenon, you know, and I sort of lucked into it and have that, and I can have the rest of my career to do whatever I want, you know. And of course, obviously, you know, the dream is like, keep doing it, you know, get me on the next trek or whatever, right? Like, absolutely. But you know, the walkaway is still like, we're part of history with this, and everybody's history. And I get, you know, generations, 3 and 4 generations of families at this point who would come to my table when I see them at different cons, tell me how they bonded over the years, and they've raised their kid, and then their kid raised their kid on Star, and it's just phenomenal, right? That you were a part of people's lives like that.
And still are, because I mean, my kids watch Stargate when they come around mine. They watch SG-1.
Right.
We sit and watch.
And there's so much great stuff to pull from there as you're raising your kids, right? It's a great show. So many different lessons, and just things to explore with them. It's a beautiful experience to have, and again, just to be a part of that, and then to hear that from them. I've had so many moments today to, you know, sit there, there's a little lull in the crowd, okay, and then somebody comes up and just brightens my day, you know, and they're like, you're like, oh, you know, I'm so excited, and I'm like, well, it's infectious.
Yeah.
You know, I'm happy.
No, it is. Honestly, it's a real pleasure. It is a real pleasure.
Thank you.
I know we're both huge Stargate fans, so when Gavin said you were coming, I literally said to him, I can't believe Scar is going. It's like, this is unbelievable. So really
and I especially wanted to be here for Cambridge Comic Con because this was Gavin's first Comic-Con show, and Gavin and I have been friends for years, close friends, and I was the best man at his wedding.
He did say, he said,
So I wanted to be here to support that effort, and he's been doing a fantastic job.
It's been phenomenal today.
You know, for a first show, it's wow.
Yeah, it's been phenomenal today. The feedback that we've had has been nothing but positive.
Yeah.
So it's great, and it's great that people can come and they can. I love Comic-Cons. I love meeting people and being able to talk to them, and it's not something you can do every day. So when it happens, you kind of think, wow, I've got to take this chance to do what I can, to speak to who I can, and to engage with people who I may never cross paths with again.
Right. That's the beauty of these conventions, and Stargate in particular. The audience is so varied. Everybody comes from such different walks of life, and they all bond over this common experience. That's amazing. That's what we want for all of our lives.
Yes, yeah. Well, I won't keep you because I know that obviously get back downstairs, but I really, really am very thankful for the time that you've given to
Thank you.
chat to you. I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, I hope that we see more from you, and I hope your book gets made because I would love to.
It would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.